Jason Scheer, who I've talked to a lot over the years through my work covering the Pac-12 at SiriusXM, and very familiar with him and talked to him on radio a lot. And so I hit him up yesterday. WildcatAuthority.com. He is, without question, one of the foremost Arizona experts. And Jason Scheer joins us now on Monday morning. Jason, what's up, man? Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm just going to add a little here in your name, and we'll get going. All right. So, Jacob Cowing, what did you think? Like, where did you think he was getting drafted? And what did you think of the Niners taking him fourth round?
Yeah, I think it's actually a really good fit for them. You know, this was a deep wide receiver class. I think in other years he actually might have gone a little bit higher. I know when scouts came to Arizona games, and I would ask them who you're watching, a lot of them would say Jacob Cowing. It's a good fit, you know, especially with the wide receiver situation that the Niners have. And you won't hear anybody say anything bad about Jacob Cowing. And a lot of people around the program and even the media are very happy for him, and really, really good dude.
You know, I thought there was so much to like about him. One of the things that makes me optimistic that he can fit in with the Niners, understanding that they drafted a receiver in the first round, there's not a lot of targets left over for anybody. There's not a lot of targets left over for Ricky Pearsall, let alone for Jacob Cowing. But one thing that I think stands out about him is this year, but really 2 years ago, Arizona had a loaded receiver room and everybody ate. Now, Arizona ran a different offense than the 49ers run, but, you know, he had come over from UTEP and was a really productive player, even though he had Dorian Singer and Tetaroa McMillan, who are also really productive players. So just what's your perspective on, like, he's not going to get 90, I don't even know. I don't have the number in front of me. I'm guessing he had 130 targets or something this year. He's probably had 300 targets the last 2 years, right? Like, that's not happening. So, you know, how do you think he will fit into a situation where he has to be productive on much less volume?
Yeah, I mean, there were games because, like you mentioned, Arizona had Tetaroa McMillan, who is arguably the best wide receiver in the country, and if he's not, he's right up there. And so, you know, there were games where the strategy by opposing teams was basically, we know T-Mac's going to get his, and we're going to focus on Cowing. And Arizona found creative ways to get him the ball, but like, you never heard any complaints, like, at all. And there were games where he only had a couple receptions, and it was more to do with the fact that he was able to force other teams to really focus in on him. And he doesn't need to be at UTEP. He was their offense, right? Like he needed to be their offense. At Arizona, he didn't need to do that. And there'd be games where, you know, he's a part of it. Arizona under Jed Fish, the screen game was a large part of the offense, and he was very good at that. He was by far the best wide receiver that Arizona had in the screen game, and he'd have games where he'd have like 8 catches for 70 yards, and a lot of it was, you know, after catch and just kind of initiating the offense when the run game wasn't going. And, you know, there were games where he had 150 yards. It was just, it depends what the defense gave him, but I think he's ready for really any type of role. I mean, he said all the right things when games happened where he didn't have a ton of catches. Even internally, I never heard anything about him complaining. It was, what can I do to help this team win? And in college, that's probably a little more unique than it should be, because in college, a lot of guys just kind of want their touches, and if they don't get it, they're going elsewhere.
5'8", and a couple eighths of an inch on top of that, 168 pounds. Is that why he's a fourth rounder and not a second rounder or a third rounder?
Yeah. I mean, he is small, you know, and he gained some strength, but he never really, the noticeable size wasn't there. I mean, look, if the guy's 6'1" and, you know, 180, 190 pounds, he's a second round pick, right? I also don't know if he's as fast or whatever it may be, but yeah, he is a little on the small side. He didn't really get injured that much. I think he had a couple ankle issues, but nothing serious. But yeah, he is a smaller receiver, especially at the next level.
So as you know, like, and Jed Fish has a lot, now he's Washington's coach, but a lot of pro style influence in him because he's been around a lot of NFL guys. How much blocking was Jacob Cowing asked to do? Can he do it? At that size, you wonder, but I guess if you're willing, you can do it. So how much of a part of that did you see at Arizona?
A lot. It was a very pro-oriented type of offense, and the receivers had to block. You do not play under Jed Fish at wide receiver if you can't block, no matter how talented you are, especially with that screen game. He was a good blocker, and it is a bit of a surprise that he was able to block so well because of his size, but he's really good with angles, whether it's blocking or catching the ball. He knows exactly where he needs to be and how to get there, and so they would use him as a blocker downfield, and with his speed, they were able to kind of get downfield and use that screen game with them. But yeah, I mean, there were no complaints with him as a blocker. I mean, Jed Fish didn't rotate receivers very much, and the biggest reason is because T-Mac and Cowing were so good that they basically never left the field.
90 catches last year, 85 catches the year before. He's going to come to the NFL. His quarterback is taller. Brock Purdy probably is taller than both guys he played with at Arizona, but he was 3 years at UTEP. He's from Arizona, right? So he came home. I think, did he have a young child when he came to Arizona as well? Just fill us in a little bit on his life story.
Yeah, he's from Maricopa, so the Phoenix area, has a young child, wanted to be closer, in UTEP. The reality is that UTEP is kind of a level down in terms of national attention and all that, but he enters the transfer portal, and Arizona jumped right on it because of that family connection, and he committed pretty quickly. I don't know if there's any other schools seriously involved, and his numbers at UTEP were really good. The expectations were high, and I remember, first practice, you could tell right away he was different than any other guy that Arizona had besides T-Mac. Really good guy. Like, everyone likes him. His teammates loved him. His coaching staff loved him. Never complained about anything. Very down to earth, quiet. He's very serious, very business oriented. It was like, he could have gone to the NFL last year. Wouldn't have been a 4th round pick, but he could have gone and probably been picked. But he said, look, I think I can get better. I want to make sure that there's a second contract. And because of that, he came back.
How did he get better last year? Was there anything noticeable?
I think just more consistent. They tried to make him part of the punt return game. That's one of the reasons he came back. But Arizona was never big on punt returns. They just didn't really do it very much.
Wait, stop. Hold on. What is that? What do you mean they didn't do it? They didn't get stops, catching. Or they just would let the ball bounce?
It was just fair catching. It was weird because when Cowing came back, he said one of the biggest pitches was, I'm going to be a punt returner. And in at UTEP, he was a very good punt returner. At Arizona, it was like all fair catches. Like, they just didn't do it really. He had a couple big ones in big games. In Stanford, I believe he had one that went for, basically led to the win in a way. I think it was like a 40-yard punt return. So he can do it. It just wasn't a major part of the game. So that's something I'm curious if he's used in that regard at the next level, because he can do it. Arizona just didn't really, it's kind of fair catch or let the ball go type of deal. But, I think he improved in his overall route running, in making sure that every route was important and just overall as a player. I mean, it wasn't like a drastic jump because he was already so good, but it kind of got a little better at everything, and it helped him move up the draft boards a little bit.
Jason, did I sense any skepticism from you that his 4.38 40 that he ran at the combine is not his game speed?
No, he's fast.
Okay.
He's very fast. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Arizona's game plan with him basically became, let's get him in the open field, get him the ball quickly, and let him beat guys. And it worked. It really did. And some schools adjusted, obviously, but it wasn't, the type of deal where, he's a possession receiver or anything like that. It was, look, we're going to send you deep. But a lot of times what they did is they said, we're going to spread the field. We're going to get him in one-on-one situations. And he's very likely to beat his man.
The Niners, being a punt returner actually is a very valuable thing for the 49ers. They've been inconsistent there. They've had fumbling issues there, that sort of thing. And one thing I like about him is he fits it on their roster is just that they're young. Some of their younger receivers are not consistent. And if you're going to be, the last receiver on game day who also plays some special teams, you might run 2 routes on offense that day. And the Niners guys just have not been, especially Danny Gray, they drafted in the 3rd round a couple of years ago. They bring him in to run a deep ball, and he might not run a great route or he doesn't catch it, and that's it for the day. When you go to, you get 2 balls, maybe. Juwan Jennings, one of their best players last year, he got 18 catches. So that's one thing that appeals to me about Cowing, even though he's a high volume guy. I do feel like he's probably, if he runs 5 routes, he's probably in the right place 5 times. And his hands are good enough that if they throw it to him once, he catches it. Is that accurate, you think?
Yeah, 100%. I don't recall. I honestly would have to think about it, but I don't recall ever saying, man, he just ran the completely wrong route. And there's other receivers on the team where you could tell they just ran the wrong route and they landed an interception or broken play or whatever it may be. I don't remember that with Cowing. He's reliable. And in this day and age, you need someone that's reliable. He's not going to go out and probably catch for 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns or anything like that. But he's going to be a reliable receiver where, like you said, if he's asked to run 5 routes, they're going to be good routes. And if he gets a catch or a pass to him, he's going to catch it. And I think there's something to be said for that, especially at the college level. He was the guy that they always felt that they could count on.
Did he run many go routes?
Yeah. It was a very pro-oriented offense in the sense where, Cowing, they line up in different situations. T-Mac was the deep threat just because of how talented he is. But, there were times where teams were bracketing him and they'd switch it around and they catch teams deep at the go route with Cowing. And he's had success in a variety of ways with Arizona.
By the way, before I let you go, Tetairoa McMillan, Jonah Savaiinaea.
Yeah.
Is Arizona going to have 2 top 10 picks in next year's draft?
It's very possible. To me, McMillan is the best receiver in the country that I've seen. And Jordan Morgan was just drafted by the Packers, and he's really good. Savaiinaea's upside is higher. I don't know if Savaiinaea right now is as good as Morgan was when Morgan left Arizona, but the upside is absolutely higher. And those 2 guys are going to be top 10 picks. Sicario Davis, a cornerback, also might be a first-round pick. If not, he'll be pretty close to it. Judfish definitely brought some talent back to Arizona football.
He's got it seems like, from what I've heard, we'll see the Washington spring games coming up in a week. Sounds like the Washington talent is pretty depleted. Yeah. So he's going to have some work to do up there. What about Brent Brennan, Arizona's new coach? I thought when the season ended last year, if Judfish had stayed, that there's a possibility that Arizona would be the preseason pick to win the Big 12. What do you think now that they had a coaching change?
Yeah, they gotta add depth. They're 15 scholarships down right now. So they got to go to the transfer portal and land at least 15 guys. They got an offensive lineman from Oregon yesterday, but the depth I think is lacking. They were able to keep the core together. The fact that they kept Fafita and T-Mac and Jonas Savaiinaea is a very, very big deal. And because they kept those guys, they kept the majority of the roster. Now it's just kind of adding depth. By the way, Brent Brennan, huge Niners guy. He's seen at practice a few times wearing a Niners hat.
We've had him on the show once. Obviously being from here, you're saying he goes to Arizona practice in a Niners hat?
We've seen him around campus wearing a Niners hat. I don't remember what it was. He was wearing one a few weeks ago. I don't know if there was a specific reason why, but it was funny. But big Niners guy. He was probably pumped with Cowan going to the Niners.
Yeah, maybe he was tipping this pick. He was secretly tipping the pick. Anything else on Cowing that stands out? Anything I didn't ask you about that you think people should know about him or what you expect from him?
My buddy and I used to go back and forth on comparisons, and the best comparison, and I don't know if he'll be as good, but the best comparison we came up with was Zay Flowers. In the sense that Zay's a small guy, right, and obviously very successful, and Cowing has that type of talent. So he's a guy where I wholeheartly believe that he's going to be successful in the NFL.
The name I've seen a few times is Tank Dell.
Yeah.
And obviously CJ Stroud throws the deep ball and Tank Dell can go and get it. But what do you think of that comp?
Yeah, I get that one too. And he's going to be able to extend the offense and go get that deep ball. I really, I've been around Cowing a lot. He works his butt off. That won't be an issue. Great locker room guy. I would be surprised if he doesn't find success in the NFL.
WildcatAuthority.com. Did Arizona have their spring game already? They did, right?
Yeah.
They did. All right.
Yeah, they did yesterday on Saturday.
Oh, they had it. Oh, was Gronk there? No Gronk anymore.
No, they didn't do any gimmicks, nothing. Just straight up. They had so many guys that did 7-on-7. It was like, let's just have a practice and get out of there.
Yeah. All right. Well, enjoy portal season then, Jason. WildcatAuthority.com. Fun to talk to you in this context, man. Thanks for jumping on.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate it. There's Jason Scheer, WildcatAuthority.com.